Welcome to Movies with MacLean. I'm Andrew MacLean, and this is the weekly podcast where we talk all things movies, including the latest in movie news. With me today is Max Brazzi. Max, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, MacLean. How about you?
Doing real good. This is actually big episode number 50 for our podcast, so to all of our fans who've been listening for 50 episodes, thank you for being loyal to Movies with MacLean. We appreciate your support, and let us know in the comments what you want to see us discuss. We like to give the viewers the content that they want to see, so let us know what topics we haven't covered in 50 episodes that you would like to see us discuss. Max, you've been on 3, I think, now of those 50 episodes.
I think so, yeah.
So since the last time you've been here, other than Spider-Man, have you seen any movies that you really loved?
I really liked Baby Driver. I enjoyed that. Had some awesome action scenes in that. Wonder Woman, I was a little underwhelmed by, and I think it was a little overhyped, and I think you kind of agree with that.
Yeah, I agree, and I love Baby Driver too. A lot of unique deaths, I thought, in that movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we're here today to talk about Spider-Man, and we actually don't have any news today, so we're gonna jump right into the Spider-Man review, and we're gonna start with a spoiler-free section for those of you who haven't seen the movie yet, and then when we get into the spoilers, we'll give you a warning, and there will be a spoiler warning on the screen, so you'll know to come back after you've seen the movie. So let's jump into the spoiler-free section of the review. And Max, I'm going to start by asking, what type of audience do you think would like Spider-Man Homecoming? Who do you think would really enjoy this movie?
I don't think you really have to be a big comic book fan to like this movie. It is almost more of a teenage high school coming of age movie rather than as a superhero movie. So really any teenage audience would like this movie, and it's just got some lovable characters. So I think it's a movie for any young people or comic book nerds would like something like that nods to the comics and nods to the other movies in the MCU as well. So really anybody around teenage age group, I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I don't think at this point there's many people who don't know who Spider-Man is. So even though they don't really get into his origin or anything, it's still a story that anyone can understand, and it does really blend the superhero action with the high school stuff really well. So getting into the high school drama is maybe something that it's done better than previous Spider-Man films. What else, and you can talk about the high school drama, what do you think it does better than previous Spider-Man films?
Well, yeah, definitely the high school aspect, but for me, I thought the comedy, the jokes in this movie were better than, especially in the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
And Amazing Spider-Man, those movies were a joke, I guess. So, yeah, the humor in that is definitely better, but it also does a good job, delving into some deeper topics. So, for me, it's mainly the humor, though.
And I also just really enjoy Tom Holland a lot better than Andrew Garfield. Yeah. And that's nothing against Andrew Garfield as an actor, but I think in the Spider-Man movies, he tried to play awkward by having a lot of stuttering, and it just didn't really work. And I think that the relationship between Peter and Ned really gives you insight into Peter's head, and you get to know him as a high schooler. And I felt almost like you're just hanging out with those guys when you're watching them a lot in high school, and that's something that we haven't really seen in any Spider-Man movies. I still do like the first two Tobey Maguire better than this new Spider-Man Homecoming, but I was surprised how much it got into the high school, the classic coming-of-age John Hughes movies. I wasn't buying the hype before I saw it, but now that I've seen it, I thought that all of that was done really well. Do you think that Spider-Man Homecoming is required viewing for the understanding of the MCU, or for not the big comic book fans, but just for general audience?
It does a good job of standing alone, I think, but it definitely has some ties and nods to that, and it doesn't really carry on the MCU as much as some other movies would, so I wouldn't say it's required viewing, but it's a really good movie, so I think everyone should check it out, especially if you're a fan of Marvel movies.
Yeah, I'd agree. It does, and that's good. I think that it is a standalone story. Much like Guardians 2 was a standalone story there. Really, they've built this cinematic universe where if you watch them all, it's still rewarding, but you don't have to watch them all. But I would still say that you should see this one because it's a lot of fun. And I'll say it's probably the most fun I've had in a theater since Civil War.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Just that whole movie is just a fun time, and like you kind of forget about stuff when you're watching that movie. It's awesome.
Yeah, and I think what it also did better than previous Spider-Man films is we see him go like out of New York, which I love. Obviously, like Spider-Man movies set in Manhattan, like or not in Queens, I mean, and then some in Manhattan. We get to see New York, but then we also got to see some of Washington in this. So we saw a little different side of Spider-Man where he's traveling, and then also just the depiction of him as a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. We got to see a lot of that, so I thought that added for a lot of the humor as well. So last part of this non-spoiler section, if you can only see a few movies this summer, is Spider-Man one of them?
Oh yeah, definitely has to be on there. It's a perfect summer movie. Just really relatable characters. I mean, probably better than any other movie I've seen this summer. Beats out, I'd say, Wonder Woman and Baby Driver. So yeah, definitely must see this summer.
I'd have to agree. Right now, I think there have been two great summer movies, Spider-Man and Baby Driver. Spider-Man's my favorite. It's one of my favorites of the year. So yeah, just fun all the way through, fast-paced. Even though it's like 2 hours, 20 minutes, I think, it's really fast-paced, and the time flies by, so I definitely recommend you check this one out. Now, you've heard our opinions. If you haven't seen the movie yet, go see it, and then come back, because we are about to get into spoilers, and we'll put that spoiler warning on the screen right now. So, now that we can discuss spoilers, what are some of your favorite moments and some of your favorite action sequences in Spider-Man Homecoming?
I'd have to say my favorite moment, which really wasn't even a Spider-Man moment, it was more just like an awkward like teenage scene, was when he goes to pick up the date. What was his date's name? Liz for prom, and he sees that the Liz's dad, spoiler, is Michael Keaton, who plays Vulture. So I thought that, because I was really confused at first, I thought that like he was holding the family like hostage,
I did
something
too.
like that. And then I saw that like it was actually his dad, and it was just really ironic seeing like slowly how Vulture figures out that Spider-Man is his daughter's date to Homecoming. And then he keeps them in the car after, and just like...
That was such a good scene where he's holding the gun, but they're just having a conversation, and he's like... There's respect between them, but at the same time he's saying like, don't mess with me or I will kill you.
Yeah, and that scene definitely like builds on to Vulture's character. It gives him some like you kind of understand where he's coming from, that family is his most important part, and that's why he does what he does. And it also adds for another like great like Spider-Man moment when like, because really he gives him the choice. He can go on with his life and go to prom and have a good time, or he can like choose to fight him. And he's gonna put his family in harm, he's gonna put himself in harm, and you can see like Spider-Man decide to do that, and I think that is another really great moment right after that. So
yeah. And as far as action sequences go, there's the big one that we saw in the trailer with them holding the ferry together, and I thought that was a good action sequence. And I also really liked the Washington Monument sequence where he was trying to hold the elevator up and trying to find a way in. That was thrilling moment, and also just where he was talking to Michelle, and she's like, my friends are up there, and he like almost addressed her as like his friend, and then realized that she didn't know obviously that he's Spider-Man. So those are some of the big action sequences, and you talk about the reveal of him being her dad. Dad villains aren't exactly new to Spider-Man, you know, obviously with Green Goblin, we've seen that before, but it still was. Maybe I should have been a smarter moviegoer and realized that, and maybe thought of that, but it did surprise me, and I really enjoyed that moment as well. So one of the things I really enjoyed was how relatable Peter and Ned were, like especially the scene where they're working on the Lego Death Star, because like that's something that I would love to do. If my friend comes up to me and says like, hey, I got a Lego Death Star, I'd be thinking about that. But then Peter obviously has his Spider-Man responsibilities too, so I thought it did a good job of showing both parts of Peter's life. So what are some of the moments like with Peter's high school drama that we might have not discussed yet that you really enjoyed?
Well, I actually have something to say about that Death Star part. Okay, so in Captain America Civil War, Spider-Man calls Empire Strikes Back that really old movie.
Yeah, I didn't like that part of Civil War.
And talks about Imperial walkers, like those old, what did he call them?
I don't know.
Those
like
big walkie things.
Yeah.
But in this movie, you see he's got like Lego starships and he's got like a Lego Death Star. So does he like Spider-Man? Or, I mean, does he like Star Wars or not? That's what I don't understand.
I mean, he likes Star Wars. I don't know. I didn't like that line in.
Yeah.
Because, like, kids, they're not going to call Star Wars a really old movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, even if this is a universe where the new movies don't exist, I'm sure they still have the prequels. Well, Mace Windu's
That's true.
Nick Fury, so I don't know. It's kind of weird. But I'm sure he's a Star Wars fan. So, what did you think of Vulture as a villain and like his motivations? Personally, I really enjoyed him, and he's one of my favorite villains we've seen in the MCU so far. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I was saying that before. Vulture is probably one of my favorites, and like I said earlier, just you can really like see where his motivation comes from, and even that opening sequence in the first like 5 minutes of the film, you see like why he holds a grudge towards Stark and like the higher ups in the world, and like you definitely like can side with Vulture, but he's just like, and he's also just like a badass villain, and I love the way they made him look in this movie. So yeah, really everything about him I liked. I had no problems with Vulture as a villain, which is surprising for an MCU movie.
Yeah, and I mean, you see like how he got screwed over, and I think it's cool that they keep tying that back into like going back to the Avengers now, whereas Zemo from Civil War was affected by the events of Age of Ultron, and then he's affected by the events of the first Avengers movie. So I think that they show how he got screwed over by the big corporations, and he sort of wanted to go after Tony Stark, and he only kills one guy in the whole movie.
Yeah, and it was an accident.
Yeah, it was an accident, and it was another criminal, so you kind of like him. He's a likable villain, but obviously he has to be stopped by selling all these weapons, and I think that, it's just a great dynamic that he has with Peter, whereas he understands Peter, and then also giving him the family and showing like that scene at the end where the other guy like wants his help, like going after Spider-Man, and he's like, no, I'm not going to help you. And then also just the way that he played off of the other criminals in his gang. Like I don't think they called him the Tinkerer at all, but that guy who made all the weapons is called the Tinkerer in the comic books.
Yeah. And
he's like, he kept saying that they were going to go after Iron Man, and he was saying like, no, we're not doing that. So I really enjoyed Vulture, and even though he is the villain, you understand everything he does pretty much. So what did you think of some of those other side characters, like the Shocker and some of those other villains? Donald Glover's character, which of those really stood out to you?
I did like Donald Glover's character for like the short amount of time he was in it. He was like just I forget. He was first introduced, he was just trying to hold someone up, and they introduced him to like those big guns that they had. And, I mean, he was good, like sort of comic relief-ish, and then they also gave a nod to Miles Morales with his character, saying that he has a nephew that...
Oh, okay. I didn't catch that. But
I didn't catch that either. I just saw it after that.
Okay.
That was a nod to his character.
Yeah.
And then, the Shocker, Tinker, Shocker gave for some good, like, action sequences, but they didn't really do too much for me. It was mainly Vulture that I really liked about this movie, and, like, he was the main villain that I really was into.
You know what's funny is, I thought that, like, you know how there's that guy, he's, like, saying, oh, you're the Shocker, I shock guys, and then he killed that guy, and he's like, you're the Shocker now. I thought that was funny, but the first guy, who was the Shocker #1, I thought that was Tom Hardy the whole time.
Really?
Yeah, it looked exactly like him, and, because we know that Tom Hardy's playing Venom.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh my god, they kept it a secret for this long that Tom Hardy's in this movie, and I thought until the very end when we, like, looked it up, found out his name's Logan Marshall Green. I was like, oh. Because I thought he died. I was like, so somehow this gun is going to turn him into Venom in the post-credits scene? Like, what? So yeah, I was surprised that was not Tom Hardy, but I thought that was a good comedic scene when that character died. And then Donald Glover's character, I think, adds to, like, showing the neighborhood of Queens, and, like, he's a guy who's a criminal, but he also doesn't want these weapons in his neighborhood. And I also thought it was a good moment when Peter, like, went into the deli, and then that deli got destroyed later. That just sort of goes back to what I loved about the Tobey Maguire films, is it really showed like Peter living in Queens in the neighborhood, and it was a great depiction of Queens, so it did that really well. What did you think of Happy Hogan and Tony Stark's involvement in Spider-Man Homecoming? Did you think it was too much or the right amount? What do you think?
I was glad, I mean, they were in that movie. They really didn't do too much. The first opening sequence after Vulture's opening sequence, where it's Peter Parker vlogging from his trip to Germany or whatever with Happy Hogan, that's like, it's a good comedy scene, and Happy Hogan's in there every once in a while, and then, like, they really didn't do too much, but it tied it to the whole universe as a whole, and then it was cool to see at the end Tony Stark, like, getting Peter Parker, trying to get him in the Avengers, and yeah, so like,
and he turns him down.
Yeah, it was cool to like continue on to the universe, but I mean, I think it would have been a great movie without them too.
And I think that it's important that he turns him down, because that means that we're going to get more of this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And then we can obviously still see him in the big Avengers movies, but you know, maybe he'll be more of the focus after Infinity War. And I thought that, Happy Hogan added for a lot of comedy, and I liked this scene where he actually came into contact with Ned, when Ned was being like the guy in the chair, and he's like, "Who is this?" And it was like, I'm Peter's friend or whatever. I thought that was really funny. And then we see Peter like sent like 20 texts in a row to Happy trying to get his attention. And I really don't think they were in it too much. I think that they showed a lot of that in the trailers, but that was a lot of like early parts of the movie, and then they were just in it the right amount. What did you think of all the functions of Peter's suit? Did you like to see what was new there, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I didn't read too many Spider-Man comics when I was younger, so I didn't know too much about like his suit. But I think that's a cool like thing they did with the suit, is to make it from Iron Man and give him all those functions. It's just like, it's a cool way, and made cool action scenes, and it definitely made for some funny scenes too, when he's trying to figure out the whole suit and all the web shooting capabilities, and he talks to the, what is it, does he call her Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, and talks to Karen. I mean, it makes for some good comedy. And yeah, I thought the suit, it was cool, and then they showed the, was it the Iron Spider suit at the end? They're both cool. I think looks-wise, I'd have to go with the original Spider-Man.
Same.
The look of that suit the most.
Yeah, I definitely like it better. I also thought there was some humor with the like instant kill mode, where he like turned that on by accident, and he like, what? No, I don't want to kill anybody. And then the interrogation suit, where he started talking to Donald Glover, and he's like, I've heard your voice before. I know what a little girl sounds like. So yeah, the functions of the suit added for a lot of humor, and I think that we could see even more down the line with like flame webs, or I think they used electric webs at one point.
Yeah.
So
Taser
it's cool.
webs,
yeah, taser webs, and that's something that I think this does better than any other Spider-Man movie, because we've really just seen the basics in the past, and there's a lot of functions that he's had. So I think that was done really well.
In the original Spider-Man, does he get the web shooting from the spider?
in the first movie they just had, it was part of his powers, where like from the spider bite that gave him the ability to shoot the web.
And the second one, Peter makes him himself.
Yeah, in the Amazing Spider-Man. And I get why they did that, because it's just less that you have to show in the film. And in the comic books, obviously, he originally built the web shooters himself, and then he moved on to, or there was another story down the line where he eventually got the power to just produce it like organically. But I was okay with, in the Tobey Maguire movies, him just having it organically. And I did think that was another cool scene where he like lifted up the lockers, and he was holding the webbing underneath there, and then him making the web in class too, like in chemistry.
I didn't even notice that.
Yeah, he was like making web fluid like secretly in chemistry class or whatever. So what are some negatives from Spider-Man Homecoming?
Alright, yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, and it might come off bad, but I think, like, I thought they tried to, like, push the diversity almost, like, too hard in that movie, if you know what I mean.
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, so, like I think it's cool that, like, they're trying to do that and stuff, but some of it just seemed like kind of forced, like the fact that they had like almost every single race in every single like classroom scene, and then like they're doing the F, marry, kill with the Avengers, and they like have a gay guy in there. It's just like,
yeah,
I thought it was like,
that was dumb.
It was almost a little too forced. Like, if you're gonna push that diversity, make him like a bigger character and like make him do something, because it really doesn't like mean much. But like,
yeah,
I'm trying to think of any other gripes I really have with this movie. I mean, I thought overall it was a really good movie.
Well, going along with that, I think I really liked the character of Michelle, and then when she said that, call me MJ,
that's another part.
I hated that, because, and it doesn't have to do with the fact that she's not white or she's not a redhead, it's because that's not who Mary Jane is at all.
Yeah.
Mary Jane's like a model, and that girl's like, you know, academic team, kind of a loser by the standards of the rest of the school, and obviously she was like obsessed with Peter. That's not really who Mary Jane is.
Yeah. It seems like they almost like threw that in there. Like there's really no point in making her MJ.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that. And then also I just thought that some of the high school stuff seemed unrealistic. Like Flash Thompson, who's this big popular dude, is like on the academic team, and he's bullying Peter, who's also on the academic team. That just didn't really make sense. And so yeah, I don't know. Like the party scene was all right. The penis Parker joke wasn't really. I didn't like that.
The whole.
But,
I didn't really like Flash's character that much.
Yeah,
in that.
I prefer when he's just the huge tough guy, and played by Joe Manganiello in the Tobey Maguire ones.
I mean, yeah, those high school scenes. I mean, they're more realistic than Peter Parker dunking and exploding the entire basketball hoop, and nobody says a thing about it.
Or throwing the football and it bends the goalpost. Yeah. So we're talking a little bit about those Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. Where does Spider-Man Homecoming rank among like all the Spider-Man movies we've seen for you?
I think I'd have to put it third. I'd go Spider-Man 2, 1, Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, it's a really good movie, but Spider-Man 2 and 1 are probably two of my favorite, easy favorite.
Those are two of my favorite movies not just comic book movies. Yeah, those are perfect in my opinion. So this is third for me too, and then Amazing Spider-Man, then Spider-Man 3, and last is Amazing Spider-Man 2.
I think I'd have to go the same thing. Yeah. I saw Amazing Spider-Man 2 for the first time like 2 days ago.
Oh, it's awful.
It was, it was bad.
I think that Jamie Foxx Electro is probably the worst comic book movie villain ever.
I think I'd have to agree with you there.
Yeah.
Maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger as the Iceman.
But he's at least funny to watch. Yeah. And what about like MCU? Does this rank towards the top of your MCU or towards bottom?
I was actually thinking about this on the way over here. I'd probably Avengers is still my number one, and then I put it probably below Guardians and what else was I gonna? And the original Iron Man. I really loved the first MCU movie, and so I'd probably have it around 4th or 5th next to Civil War. So yeah, I mean it was a really good MCU movie and one of my favorites definitely.
I'd agree. I had it right under Civil War. It was the most fun I've had in a theater since Civil War, but I think Civil War was just a little bit higher level of like giddiness the whole time in the theater. It's definitely one I want to see in the theaters again, which anytime that happens, that's a great sign in a movie. I think it's like 7th for me, where I have like the first Iron Man, Avengers. Actually, I have like all of the Captain America movies up there, and then Guardians. So it's like 7th, and then right above like Incredible Hulk, which a lot of people don't like, but I actually really like the Incredible Hulk. I think those are two that are set in New York, and I love any comic book movie that's set in New York. So I really love Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm going to give it a score of a 9 out of 10. It's my second favorite movie of the year so far, right under Logan, right above Get Out. So definitely go see it. I guess you've been spoiled at this point, but it's a 9 out of 10 for me. I loved it. A lot of fun. I'll definitely get it for my Blu-ray collection. Definitely go see it again. What's your score out of 10?
I think I'd give it a 9 out of 10 as well. And you said second after Logan and before Get Out?
Get Out's third, yeah.
I would say I'd probably go Get Out 1, Logan 2, and then Spider-Man Homecoming 3. Baby Driver 4 probably. So yeah, it was a really good movie. Probably going to have to go see it again.
Yeah. And what do we want to see next for Spider-Man? We know that he's going to be in Infinity War. We know we're getting the Venom movie with Tom Hardy. And probably he's going to take more of a lead role in the MCU after Infinity War, I think. at least. So what other kinds of Spider-Man movies do you want to see down the line?
Like you said earlier, I think the neighborhood Spider-Man is when it works the best. I mean, he'll be good teaming up. Like, those action scenes were awesome in Civil War where he teams up with them, but really because the Spider-Man villains are, like, on their own level. I think he's got so many awesome villains, and so just, yeah, stuff based in New York with some more great villains, maybe build up to a Sinister Six movie. I mean, that would be pretty sweet. And is so there's the Tom Hardy Venom movie coming out. That's the Sony universe? So is that...
They've, like, announced that that's, like, part of the MCU. Like, it's completely produced by Sony, but Tom Hardy, that character, still exists in the same universe.
So could you see, like, Tom Hardy and Tom Holland going after each other?
Yeah,
okay, I would love to see that.
Yeah, that'd be sweet. I also think it'd be cool to see, like, Mysterio. Like, I know that's kind of a goofy-looking villain, like Fishbowl Head, but I just think that's a different kind of villain that we haven't seen with... Like, plays with, like, magic a lot, so that'd be cool to see him go after that. Maybe we see, like, Spider-Man, Doctor Strange team up and have Mysterio be the villain. But I just think that there's so much potential with this new Tom Holland. He's, like, almost at the level of Tobey Maguire for me as far as favorite Spider-Man. He really captures the essence of Peter Parker really well, so I think if they stick with the high school movies, which I think they're going to do, it can only be good. So I'm really looking forward to the future of the MCU with Spider-Man. What do you think his role might be in Infinity War?
I don't think I think he'll be definitely doing something, like, obviously pretty grounded. Obviously, it'd be cool seeing him, like I don't know what to expect with Infinity War, really. You think it'll be mainly, like, based in space, based on Earth, so...
Well, we saw that, like, behind-the-scenes thing where they were obviously on, like, another planet. Yeah, and Tom Holland was there, so, I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting seeing him, because, like, I couldn't picture him, like, fighting some, like, weird, like, alien, like, villains, but, I mean, it'd be cool to see, so, yeah, I'm excited. I don't know if he'll play a huge role, kind of like he did in Civil War. I think that's what he'll be more doing, just like in some action scenes. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see though. I'm excited.
Yep. So the future's bright for the MCU, and Spider-Man: Homecoming was a great entry into the franchise. That's all we have in our Spider-Man review. So thank you to everyone for listening, and thank you, Max, for coming today.
And thanks for having me. Congrats on 50 episodes.
Thanks, Guy. Be sure to have you back soon. And until next week, may the Force be with you.
All right, yeah.